Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening in this beautiful weather. We're glad that you chose to join us. I'm Brooke Giles. I'm the NRI Communications Specialist, and I'm here tonight to introduce to you your speakers, Dr. Jomari Torres, who's the Director of our Human Research Core, and Kara Marker, who is a marketing intern for the entire campus, but I believe her office is in the DHMRI across the way. Tonight they're going to be talking about the importance of clinical trials. So I hope that you thoroughly enjoy this presentation.
Okay, can you guys hear me well? Okay. I do tend to speak fast when I'm really nervous, so you can do this or do this, and then we'll know, okay? Let's see about this thing. I'm gonna have to do it this way. So, so tonight I just want to go over some simple facts about what clinical trials or research is, and just some misconceptions about it, and how important it is to all of us, and how much benefit we can all get from those clinical trials or research, however you want to call that. We're going to go over very quickly and briefly over things, trials history, things that we know now, and they became real because of the clinical trials or research that they underwent. We're going to talk about the misconceptions again, and we have Kara Marker, which was actually one of our participants for one of our clinical trials recently, who's going to talk to you about the experience that she undergo one of them. So just a quick brief history, and this is a very busy slide, so I apologize for that, but you don't have to read it all. But the 1900s, which is the 20th century, and some people call it the 100 years of scientific creativity, included things such as the cure for syphilis in 1909, included things such as the discovery of penicillin, chemotherapy to treat leukemia, vaccine against polio, which we now not even think about it anymore because we don't have that anymore. Included things such as the first kidney transplant, the first human heart transplant, included things such as Prozac, which everybody pretty much knows about, I think. So that was part of our 1900s. And now more recent medical advances of this decade that became possible through clinical trials, included in 2003 when they actually reported the Human Genome Project that gave us the complete genetic blueprint for building a human being. Also, we know a lot about the anti-smoking. A lot of places you go to, they don't allow you to smoke anymore, even close to the place. That became through clinical trials. People knew what the smoking was doing, not only to the people that smoke, but to secondhand smoking. Heart disease death drops by 40% because we knew what beta blockers did. We found out through clinical trials that it helped after heart attacks. The aspirin for both therapy and prevention of heart attacks, the benefits of cholesterol lowering in patients with heart disease. We also, did I go too fast? Yeah, I did. Did I? Where am I? This thing is still. I went too fast on this thing. And we also went through the we went from very invasive procedures, such as if anybody has had an appendectomy years and years ago, they have a long scar in their belly, and now you don't even see that scar anymore. Because of what? We do all these microscopic, endoscopic surgeries. Ultrasound. Ultrasound, MRI, CT scan. People are aware of that. That also is clinical trials, clinical research. Now, some of the misconceptions that people think about clinical trials or research, they think, well, what is that going to do to me? You know, if I am in the clinical trial, is that going to cure my disease? If I participate in the research, would the doctor treat me any differently if I don't want to participate? Could it be harmful if I participate? And again, we have a very small group, so if at any time you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me. Now, what is clinical trials? I think that's very important for us to understand. clinical trials just don't happen one day and people want to try something on people. Maybe in other countries, but not really in here, okay? So it goes through a whole process. It goes from the bench to the clinical trial per se. So on the bench, research is it's what people know as the basic research is in the lab. It doesn't involve any human being. It doesn't involve any animals. Usually it's where scientists are discovering the fundamentals of things. Why a cancer cell reacts differently than a normal cell. So they're understanding the mechanism of things. They're not trying to find a cure during that time. They're not trying to find a new treatment. They're just basically trying to understand what is the problem. How does that work? And sometimes during that process of having that bench or basic research is when they discover something that could be promising. And then that is pushed to the second part of what a translation into clinical research, which is the preclinical research. They discover something that is promising during the bench trials or bench research, and then they go ahead and try to explore it more. Now, there's two different steps during this preclinical research. One that is called in vitro, and that refers more when they're using tests, using cell lines, cell cultures, test tubes, and then they move into the in vivo, where this discovery that they made or study is tested actually in animals, and they try to collect more about the whole process, about the toxicity, the absorption, or what is the mechanism, what happens in actually a living thing. Now, I want to ask just the public if they have any idea of how much could be the cost of going from the bench or basic research to this preclinical. Anybody wants to guess? You in the back in black. Tundra, please. What do you think is this cost? Millions of dollars. I take one person. She's pretty close. Okay, so it takes about, in an average, about $500 million in this, in an average, just to discover a new successful drug. So it's pretty expensive. Now, the time, sometimes it takes about a whole decade to go through that process. So we're talking about at least 10 years or more from these two phases, okay? Now, the last one, which is why we're here today, is what the clinical research or clinical trial. Now, this is where actually an investigational or drug or a treatment or a therapy or a new way, a study, it's a study more in depth, and there is actually then human beings involved in these trials. It's composed of 3 phases, sometimes the 4th. The phase 1 is where safety assessment, identification of possible adverse events or side effects, dose safety, how is going to be this given, is it by mouth, injection, and so forth, and what is the mechanism for this drug, if that's a drug that we're investigating. Now, nothing happens because I pull it out of my pocket and I want to do this today. There is a process that the FDA, the federal, the Food and Drug Administration is involved and it's well controlled. So you have to go through a whole process of filling out lots and lots of papers before you can actually get this trial started. There is the phase 2 where the clinical effectiveness, does it work or does it not work? There is the phase 3 when actually now they're going to try to compare what they already know to this new process or this new study or this new drug to the things that they have, is it better or not? And sometimes phase 4 is when they try to prove this drug that is good for this disease or this treatment to use it for something else, but it's already been approved by phase 3. Now this is how can you get involved in the study? How can you get involved in any clinical trials? I didn't know much while I was going through residency. I didn't know much about it many years ago, and I know there are people still that don't know how to even get involved. Here at the NRI, we try to recruit either through media, website, our own website, so you can check on the website, the uncnri.org, and see if there is any studies, and it gives you a tab in there that says, how can I get involved? That doesn't mean that you're involved once you click on it, so you can be not afraid to click on it, okay? It doesn't search you. We use flyers in public places. Sometimes at your doctor's you will see flyers, or when you go to the church, or some other places you might see flyers about different studies that are going on. Once you have found the study that you are interested in participating, then you try to contact the number or the information in there, and they will do some pre-screening on the phone, probably to make sure that you are actually a candidate, a valid candidate for that study. Now, instead of me going through all of that, we have a person in here, Karen Marker, who did all of that. So it's good to hear from somebody who has been involved in a study, so I'm going to pass it on to her now.
All right. Hey, everybody. I got involved in my study back in September. It was the UNC NRI Fruit and Vegetable Study. And I was actually kind of getting involved in my marketing position that I'm in now at the same time, so I ended up being on the listserv where you get these announcements about the different studies that they're doing. So anybody can be on a listserv. You get updates about the research campus as well as the updates about the studies that you can participate in. So like Dr. Torres said, they kind of give you a general list of what they're looking for. And so you know that if it's a study looking for pregnant women participants, if you're a man, you're not going to, ask to be involved in that study if you're not a woman who's pregnant. And so I responded to one that was just a very average calling, and I thought, I not just moved to Charlotte, I'm going to give it a try, and I have a science background, and so I was interested in the research. And so I came in, and they asked me just a few general questions about kind of my health and lifestyle. And then after being told that my kind of characteristics fit with what they were looking for in the study, I got asked to be involved. And so I started kind of the process. And they probably vary pretty much a lot during the different kinds of studies, but mine was a very generic, I think, kind of process that I followed. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I started with kind of my instructions. Each day that I would go in to do the study, I would fill out a food log so they know what I'm putting into my body before they try to analyze what the effects of these fruits and vegetables have. And so I'd fill out this food log, and so I'd come in, and they, in the morning, they'd first take my blood, and then I would get the smoothie. And so they put different kinds of fruits or vegetables into these smoothies, and so they're trying to look at the effect that it has on the body. So I drink my smoothie, and they take some blood some more times, and but other than that, I get to hang out at the UNC Nutrition Research Institute. They've got Wi-Fi and TV and all kinds of stuff, and so it's really pretty easy to participate if you have the time. I work from home, and so I could take my laptop and go and work while I was waiting to get my blood draw, so that was pretty useful. And then so you are there the first day about 6.5 hours, I believe. They give you dinner and lunch to take with you. So, everybody in the study gets the same food, so they know that something you're eating during the 24 hours that you're giving your blood samples isn't affecting what's going on in the study. And so it ends up being a full 24-hour period, so you go in at maybe 7:30 the first day, you stay for 6 or so hours on that first day, and then you come back the next morning at 7:30 to get your final blood draw. And then you're good, and then you maybe wait 2 weeks, and then you do it again, and then I ended up doing that cycle 3 times, and then that was it. So like I said, we did the food log before. That wasn't too hard to maintain. They made it very easy to kind of fill out the kinds of things that you were eating and at what time during the day you were eating it. And then also the other stipulation was that you don't drink alcohol 3 days prior. Other than that, it was a very simple process, and I felt like I knew what was going on at all times. And we're always very careful to say, if you're not comfortable continuing, there's no pressure to, continue for the whole time that you're there. And so, but other than that, once I was finished, you don't necessarily know the results right away because science is a pretty long process, but it feels good to be part of something, that you're helping it to advance and helping people figure out, these nutritional benefits of fruits and vegetables. So it was a very good experience.
Thank you, Kara. Does anyone have any questions so far? So this slide is everything and a lot less than what Kara said. So she knows everything she was saying. The important thing that I wanted to make is safety is always the main concern and responsibility of any scientist. So if anything is discovered through the study, anything changes through the study, you're going to be the first one to know if you're involved. And you're still going to have a chance to get yourself out of the study, withdraw from the study at any point that you don't feel comfortable, and there is no penalty for that. So that's very important for people to understand. Now, what are the potential outcomes of the study? What could happen when a clinical trial is undergoing? It has happened, you're doing it. Well, different things can happen. One, you can find a new therapy. You can find a new drug, a therapy for a disease, a cure for a disease. I mean, we have now people living with HIV a lot longer than we did a long time ago because we have a lot of different drug modalities and different drugs, injunctions that they can take, and they can live more of a normal life. So it is important. Or you can have a new procedure. We just talk about laparoscopies, endoscopies, things that are just very minimally invasive. The other thing could be that there is no benefit. There was nothing found, again, when we talked about the phase 3, that was better than what we had before. So you can go for years studying something, and at the end, really, you didn't find anything that could improve quality. Or cure of a disease. Or you can actually find that what you're doing, it's not any better. It's not as good as what it is actually now being used. Here at the NRI, or the Nutrition Research Institute, we focus on individualized response to nutrients and diets. Some people call it responders versus non-responders, meaning why some people that eat the same food that you eat might gain weight or not gain the weight, and you do completely the opposite. Why is it that even if you eat the same amount of food, that the person, that your husband or your wife, you're the one gaining weight and not them, or vice versa? So we do know that your body responds different than the person sitting next to you. Here at the NRI, the scientists conduct researches in the areas of genetics. We have people that are working in cancers. We have people that are working in brain development, birth defects, liver and heart diseases. We have clinical trials that are usually related to nutrition. And again, how a particular food or nutrient, like Kara was talking about these smoothies with fruits and vegetables, do they help with the immune response? Do they help with the antioxidant response? Do they help you? Those are the things that we try to concentrate on in our research. We are very interested in weight gain, obesity as well, which of course is part of nutrition. So clinical trials that have been completed here at the Research Institute include a study that was done in elderly that were already having some mental cognition decrease or deficient, or going, not remembering things as well, to see what the blueberry consumption would do to them. So they underwent a clinical trial under certain specifications, and they all ate certain things, and the effects of that was a study. There is also been another study that is still undergoing with a sperm function and motility, to see if there is also an impact on a certain nutrient given to these people, usually men, all men. Everybody's supposed to be laughing now. Okay. And see if this improved. There was another study using, and this is the one that Kara was involved, seeing how, no, not this one, I'm sorry, the antioxidant response to a set of chosen fruits and vegetables. There have been other studies that we have reached out to the community with the firefighters. We were measuring their muscle strength, and I'll show you some of that equipment. And there's other diabetes studies, pilot studies undergoing right now. Now I'm going to show you some of our things that we get to play with that are very exciting equipment. This in here, it's a fancy name for an equipment that helps you with muscle rehabilitation and also to check your muscle strength, to evaluate your muscle strength. And we have some very nice people that helped us out to take very nice pictures. On this side, on the right-hand corner, you see the dynamometer in there being used in a very fitted person, but anybody can use it. Like I said, it could be for rehabilitation. On the left-hand corner, you can see our whole room calorimeter, which we're going to talk about it in a second. And in here, you can see this thing that my little one called it the space shuttle, but it's not a space shuttle. It's a bot pod, and it measures actually your body mass composition. So it can tell you what that doctor keeps telling you, that your BMI is too high. This can measure that for you. And that is our whole room calorimeter. In there, there is not any other in the Carolinas, and there's only about 12 totals in the whole United States. They keep building more, and usually they are located or associated, affiliated with research centers, although some hospitals do have, very few hospitals. And what this special room that looks like a little fancy hotel, we can put a person in there and we can measure minute by minute every calorie that your body's burning, which is amazing to me. So we can get a lot of useful data, again, about things that you eat, exercises. We have the ability to put a bike and even a treadmill in there. We can measure what your body's doing, how much calories it's burning. Now this is one of our beautiful models, which might be present here in the audience today. The lady who's conducting the study there, and she's helping one of our subjects to measure and explain to her what she needs to do to get in the bod pod. Now, amazingly enough, I don't know how big of this is the picture, that is for babies. We can do the same thing in babies. This machine is called the P-Pod, and you can put a baby that is anywhere between birth and 6 months of age in there, and you can measure their body mass composition, their fat percentage in their body. Why is this important? Well, it's important because you can tell what a mother's diet, when the baby was still in the belly, did to that baby. So we can make good recommendations, scientific-based recommendation, evidence-based on what is good and not is not good in terms of nutrition for that baby, even before that baby is born. This is our same model. She's going to give autograph at the end. This is called a Metabolic Cart. This is, I like to call it kind of the small version of that whole room calorimeter. This helps you as well measure what you're burning, the calories you're burning, and that the subject has something in her mouth, because what we're doing is we're kind of measuring all the oxygen and CO2 that the person is consuming, or is what you produce when you breathe out. Anybody can do this. It doesn't have to be a fitted person. It depends on what the study requirements are. Same thing, same machine. This time she is doing some electrodes, and we can measure heart rate, we can measure respiration. This in here, a very fancy machine. A lot of people are more familiar with this because at some point or another, when we get a little bit more mature, the doctors like to know your bone density. So this machine in here, the DEXA for short, what it does, it also can give you your body mass index, which means the percentage of fat, the same thing as that space shuttle was doing, but also can give you your bone density. So as you get older, especially in females, that's something that the doctors like to check. And we have all of this right across the street. This one in here, you can see some people in action. Those are the firefighters. When that study was undergoing, they took actually the bod pod there. And part of the study that they wanted to do was to measure the percentage fat or the body mass composition. And then we have somebody in the DEXA, and we have another one of our models is here too, doing some microscope looking. We offer phlebotomy. We do all our labs as well. We draw our labs, our blood, our specimens right there. So you don't have to go anywhere. Once you go in and you get your participant of a study, you get everything done in there. If I don't leave you with a lot to think about, but one of the things that I want you to think when you leave this place is clinical trials. They just don't happen when anybody wants them to happen. They don't happen just by, turning on a light switch. They go through a lot of scrutiny. It's a lot of years, a decade between the first and the second part, and between the other one is a lot of more years as well, that in a decade, 10 years or more, that before it gets actually to be tested or doing a clinical research in us, in the humans. And obviously the benefits have to outweigh the risk from the beginning. There has to be that potential. Most of our medical discoveries have been made through clinical research. So somebody at some point cooperated to make that happen. And that's why we have what we have today. And clinical trials, as we were talking about, they're very costly. They take time. The first phase I told you takes about, 500 million, I said? Right? The second phase, the clinical, it's billions we're talking about when you're actually in clinical trials to make something happen. So a large number of the clinical trials or research are supported by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, some private companies, but amazingly enough, a lot of them are also funded through generous donations from us, the American public. So we do play a vital role. And unfortunately, I think all of the money we're putting into research, we're just not getting the full benefits of what we're discovering. We know that we need to eat more healthy. We know that we need to eat more vegetables and fruit, yet we need to talk about that every day when I see patients. Why? Because we don't pay attention. I mean, the fast food industry keeps growing, and it's very profitable. So something we're not getting it. We're investing. We know we still don't do it. We know we're supposed to exercise, and we're not talking about heavy exercise. You don't have to be a thin person, skinny. Just a walk, around the block. We still don't do it because we have very busy schedules. I'm one of them. We never have time. But we know that we can actually get benefits for them. So I think a lot of the we're not getting all of the benefits that or the research is giving it to us. We're just not following it. Any questions up until now about how the clinical research happened? Yes, ma'am. That's very good. Kara must have told you that. No. Well, usually depends on the study, and they do want a number. It depends on what you're trying to do in the study, and they want a number that is significant enough that if you find something, it's actually valid. Because if you do something and it's only in 5 people, and they all, first of all, if they all reacted differently, that doesn't give you with anything. If they all react the same, that's still not a large number. So you, depending on the study, you will look of what is the number to validate your study. That's a good question. Anyone else? So I have my, yes, ma'am. That is an excellent question. I think a lot of the studies that we do right now, they're usually 18 or older, and I'm going to go right into why is that. And then sometimes they do span until 60s or 70s, depending on what the study is. So it's a large span of population. So if you think you're too old for the study, you might as well check, because you might not. You might fit right in there. Now, children's studies, kids that are underage, is a little bit of a harder thing to accomplish just to make it happen, because, you know, people don't like to have their kids poke, probe, have all the blood drawn. But still, there's studies that have to be done in children in order for us to know that this vaccine is good. There's things that has to be done in children, meaning do you see that the less kids are getting sick, less kids are getting measles, which we're having a problem now, again with that, because people are not vaccinated. So it's a little harder, but a lot of majority of the studies have a very large span of the age span that we include. Now, some studies do take men and women, some studies only take men, and some studies only take women. Some studies are actually for a family. Right now we have a study that it's open, that is for African American families. It's a mom and 2 children. Now, they're asking for a specific age of that children range, which makes it a little harder to find those subjects. But yes, there is so many things going out that I'm sure that if you look, you can find something that would fit you. And maybe not right now, but there are always new studies, especially at that website. Any other questions? Yes, the man over there with the jacket. That's my son. That's a very good question. And I didn't practice that at home, I promise. So what happens is when you find a study that you're interested, you call, you contact the contact information. Sometimes it's via email, sometimes you actually they give you a phone number and you call, and they will give you a pre-screening. And the pre-screening, they will ask you some simple questions. They're not looking at you, so it's nothing personal. They're following the same script with everybody. And it's almost like passing a test. Okay, this question leads you to the next one. Now, if you pass the pre-screening, you more likely will get invited to come in person, and there's more paperwork to fill out. Now, I don't want to say more paperwork to fill out, but there is some paperwork to fill out. It's not a very tiring process, but we want to make sure that you fit for that study and that you're okay and that you don't have any risks that could make the study risky for you in particular. So it's a very personal approach. Now, once you are involved in the study, we do make sure it's a very personal then relationship. We make sure you're doing okay. We make sure that you don't feel sick. We make sure that there's no side effects of anything you're drinking. And we provide with things in here to make you, that you have comfort. You're comfortable while you're in that building. And then through the study, like I said, if anything were to happen, if they find out, hey, listen, what we're giving them might not be exactly what we were hoping for, or they didn't make it exactly, the company that we sent this to be made doesn't have the same concentration, doesn't make it makes you sick, anything, they will tell you right away. Anything they find, it's clear to you. You're part of it, nothing is hidden. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Now, and that's a very good question, because it's how much can you put in a piece of paper without scaring people or not giving away all this information that is not necessary just to see if you're interested. So that's a very good question, and I'm not going to go into that exactly because I know that's a touchy one. So you have to put some information in there, obviously, but I'm going to do another example of a supplement for an infant. The supplement for the infant was a new formula, and then it was advertised there's going to be this new formula that is safe for your child. There will be, there is nothing. I don't want to say that it's risky because that's already scaring people, but if you're interested, it's very clear. If you're interested, please call us and we'll go over everything. So there's the information that is out there, even on those flyers that were put out in the colleges around here. It was information also, and that one is very touchy because even if people grab a flyer next to you, you're looking at them already in the wrong way. Oh, they're going to go to that thing. So there's very little. It depends on the study what we put up there, but it's not a trick. We put in there what the study is about, and we say, please, if you want more information, call us. And then you get all the information you need as per marketing. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. Saisal. And that's very important. I didn't go into the IRB process, but everything is looked through a comb. Everything has to be checked, double checked, and when we do it, we have to go through this IRB process, which is somebody who is not in our building, it's nobody that is getting paid by anybody here. It's a board that reviews that everything that goes out is safe for the public, is safe for the subjects, for us, the human beings that are going to be recruited. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. That's an excellent question too, and because a lot of people do work and they want to participate, we're very flexible. The ladies that work in the clinical research or in the clinical unit that actually have the contact with the subjects, sometimes they work on Saturdays and Sundays if it have to be. Now, it's not what we prefer if you can make it Monday through Friday, but we will accommodate, we will make it happen. It is very flexible. There are studies that are 24 hours sometimes on that Nancy fancy room that I show you. There are people that actually stay there for a whole day, 24 hours. And so there is always somebody there working because they have to be watched. They have to make sure they're monitored, that nothing is happening, that that person is not having no problems inside a room, you know? So everything is well monitored. And yes, we're very flexible. Yes, sir. Well, there's always a compensation, okay? And the compensation, obviously, hey, if we don't get paid, we don't work, right? So it is attractive to the people, obviously. Now, one of the things is it's a very fine line because you don't want to put money out there if I'm going to take a kidney out of you, right? Because that would be wrong. I'm paying for that kidney. So, and that was another joke. Nobody's laughing. But you do have to get paid because sometimes you're missing work. So we do recognize that and we value your time. You have to come here. If you have to drive, that's gas too. So we will compensate very fairly, meaning that some people, it's much money that they make, but it's a fair value. We're not trying to attract you by giving you money, so you do this, even coercion, even if you don't want to do it. We don't do that. And that's another thing that that board that watches over everything makes sure that people are not doing this because they're being attracted by that money. So it has to be a fair value, but we're very conscious, of your time and the effort that you have to make. And when you're involved and you're there the whole day, we do provide most of the time. If you're in a study like Kara was 7 hours or 6 hours, you get lunch. Now it's part of what we build into that study, so we know what you're eating, but you get lunch as well. So we do try to, make sure that everybody who's involved feels that they were compensated fairly. Any other questions? Yes, sir. No more questions for you. No, I'm kidding. That's a very good question. And those are hard because you're underage. So anybody who is less than 18, we're hoping to keep expanding, but it's just a little bit more of a lengthy process to get those approved, and also for the parents and everything else. But right now we do have one study, and it's not exactly adolescents, but it's that family, African-American family, and mom with 2 children. And I believe that the children are 5 and 7? Is that correct? 6 to 10. So it has to be 2 kids on that age range. So you have to have 2 kids on that age range, and those are the kids that come. But it could be things in the future, hopefully with obesity, diet. Those are the things that we're looking in the future with more of adolescents. Well, I do want to leave you with this quote of Dr. Chalmers, which was a physician in the military, and he was a pioneer in actually doing clinical trials. And when I read this, it's so true and impacted me so much that I do want to leave you with this. If you don't remember anything else I said, remember one thing. We all go to a doctor, and we all go get seen sometimes because it's a physical, sometimes because you're sick. And his quote says, "The practice of medicine is in effect the conduct of clinical research. Every practicing physician conducts clinical trials daily as he is seeing patients. The research discipline known as the clinical trial is just a formality. It's the formalization of this daily process, meaning when you go and you see your doctor, he might have seen 10 of your cases, and by when he sees you, he might already have changed how he's treating you. It's still within the scope of treatment. It's still under, a standard of care, but he might change because of you, how he treats the next patient. So even though we don't think we're in research, we're daily in research. When you go and see your doctor, they change how they treat you. So I think, what better way to actually be involved in research by me knowing that I'm involved in research? It's actually a conscious decision versus an unconscious decision. You don't know you're being, in research, and you've been used as research every day. This is how life is. This is how we advance in medicine. This is how we picked our treatments sometimes, and this is how we make great discoveries. So you might as well do it consciously, and then get paid for it, of course. No. Any other questions? Well, that is it. It was short.